Hello everyone, my name is Oktay Avcı, and today I'm going to talk about intonation. Or if you have been our MOOC courses before, we have talked about intonation briefly in our courses, but today I'm going to talk about a little bit, more in depth uh, into intonation. So what we're going to talk about today is that we are going to talk about what is intonation. We are going to talk about various patterns of intonation. We're going to talk about intonation's role in new information and old information. We're going to talk about the relationship between intonation and questions. And at the very end, we're going to talk about how intonation and intonation patterns can, express our feelings. So to start, what is intonation? Well, intonation is a thing that, you can understand from its name, intonation. So it's all about the tone of your voice, which is about the pitch of your voice. So what you do is that you change the pitch of your voice in order to highlight something, in order to make a comment on something, in order to suggest something, in order to criticize something. So what you do basically is that you change the pitch of your voice and you tone your voice in specific ways to make a point basically. So intonation has patterns. There are in total 7 patterns, but 4 of them are very important to us because that 4 is what we use in our day-to-day conversations. So what they are is that they are rising, falling, rising, falling, falling, rising, flat, high, and low. So the first 4 is what's important for us: rising, falling, and falling, rising, because those are the ones that we use like commonly in our daily conversations. So in order to understand the pronunciation differences between those intonation patterns, we can look at this example. We are going to use the word where or the question where in this instance. So we have a rising, falling, and falling, rising examples here. So I'm going to read them aloud for you. If you like to read them aloud before me, you can try to guess them. So in the rising pattern of intonation, you start low and you go up with your voice. Like where, where, you can hear that I start low and I go up. Where, and for the falling pattern, you start high and you go low. So where, 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 right? Start high, go low. So for the pattern for rise and fall, what we do is that we start from the bottom, we go up, and we go down again. So where, where, right? Where? My pronunciation can be a little bit bad. I'm not a native speaker, and probably you're not too. So in order to get a better understanding of the intonation and intonation patterns and how they are pronounced, you can do more research on this topic. You can delve more in depth into this topic than I did. So what you can do is that yes, you can compare your pronunciations and my pronunciations. So I'm sorry, I think you heard a WhatsApp voice. So sorry. Sorry. So for the falling and rising, we start from the top, we go down, and we go up again. Where, where, like where, right? It seems silly when you say it. So in order to understand it better, we're going to use another example here. How many? The question of how many. I think it's better for us to no, it's better for us to understand the differences between these intonation patterns with like more and more examples. So I hope these WhatsApp noises don't come to you. I try to hold on. Let me silence them. Yes, sorry. So let's continue. So with the rising one, we say we start from the bottom and we go up. We say how many, right? For the falling one, we say how many, start from the top, go down. And for the rise and fall, we go from the bottom to the top and we go down again. So how many, how many, how many is better, I guess. The first one wasn't quite good. How many, or, and for the other one, rising and falling, start from the top, go down and go up again. So how many, right? Start from the top, go down and go up again. How many, right? So where do we use them? Where do we use these patterns of intonation? Well, we use these patterns of intonation in order to, mark the ending of a sentence, or we can use them in order to mark that if that specific sentence is finished or not. Is it going to continue or is it already over? So we are using falling tones and rising tones in order to mark if those sentences are finished or not. So as you can see from the left example, we use a falling tone pattern in order to signify that our sentence has ended. And we are going to continue that sentence with a new sentence, right? So what we do is that, yeah, I live in Madrid. I live in Madrid. I live in Madrid. No, you stop there and you continue with another sentence. So she's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. Start high, go low. She's a lawyer. We might be a bit late. We might be a bit late, right? You signify that, yes, this sentence is over and I'm continuing with the next one. But when you use a rising tone, you signify that your sentence, that specific sentence, is not finished. So you use a rising tone. As you can see from the example, I live in Madrid, but I was born in Canada. She's a lawyer, although she isn't working at the moment. We might be a bit late because I don't finish work until 7. As you can see, when you change your tone, you signify that this sentence is not finished, or this sentence is finished, depending on your tone, depending on your intonation. So we came to the new information and old information. So we can use patterns of intonation in order to signify if for example, a specific word is an old information for us or a new information for us. So as you can see from the examples, we use a rising tone in order to signify that something we know beforehand, before our conversation. But we use a falling tone in order to signify that we haven't heard this or we haven't seen this piece of information before ever, so this is completely new to us. So what's happening here is that let me explain it with the example. So we are starting with the on the left. So I thought you were going to get the bread. I thought you were going to get the bread. So there is something. So we know that there's a bread and someone is supposed to buy that bread, right? But we don't know that he or she or you were supposed to get this bread. So we know that there was a bread that existed, but we didn't know that you were going to buy that bread. So You is something that we didn't know before, so we use a falling tone. I thought you were going to get the bread, right? We know the bread, and so we use a rising tone, bread, right? Another example we can give is the on the right. So how are we going to make sandwiches if you don't have any bread? How are we going to make sandwiches if you don't have any bread, right? So again, we knew that there was a bread in our conversation, but we didn't know what we were going to do with this bread. So sandwiches are a new thing for us. We didn't know that we were going to make sandwiches. So that information is new. So we indicate that we didn't know this piece of information before. So we use a falling tone in order to signify that, yes, we didn't know that before. So what we talked about here is that we talked about bread and sandwiches. So depending on the examples that I given to you on the previous slide, so I would like you to you know understand which is which. So I'm going to mark which is a rising one, which is a falling one. But before me, I would like you to do which specific word is the how should I say? In which specific word should we use a rising tone or should we use a falling tone, depending if they are new or old? So I assume you've stopped the video and did the example. So as you can remember, we've talked about sandwiches and bread on those two previous examples. So sandwiches are an old information for us, so we should use a rising tone when we mark the word, when we signify the word sandwiches. But bakery wasn't mentioned anywhere in those two previous examples. So we should use a falling tone in order to signify that, yes, we didn't know this piece of information before. So but there's a thing. You don't always have to use this, how should I say, definitive rules in order to signify if something's old, something's new, or in order to signify your sentence is finished or not. You know, intonation and intonation patterns can really be, they can bend. You can bend the rules of intonation and intonation patterns because it all depends on the speaker itself. It all depends on their specifications. It depends on their background, how good they can speak the language or not. So, depending on the person who's speaking, the intonation and intonation patterns can be bended. So you don't always have to use a rising tone. You don't always have to use a falling tone in order to signify if a word is old or new. You can use rising falling, you can use falling rising, you can use high, you can use low, you can use flat. I mean, it's all up to you. So, where do we use them? In our questions, where do we use intonations and intonation patterns in our questions? So, we use them in our questions. We use a falling tone, as you can see from the example on the left. We use a falling tone when we don't know the answer. But we use a rising tone where we kind of know the answer. So what do we mean by that is that, so I'm going to explain you with examples. So where did you go for your vacation? So you ask them to someone and you expect an answer back. So you don't know the answer of your question, so you use a falling tone. Where did you go for your vacation? Have you ever been in some place? Did you have a good time? Right? You don't know the answer yet, so you use a falling tone. But you use a rising tone when you kind of know the answer of your question. So, is that in Croatia? So you kind of rise the Croatia part. So let's say you're talking about the city called like Dubrovnik, and you kind of think, yes, Dubrovnik was like probably in Croatia, but you're not sure. So in order to get a confirmation from the other party that you're talking to, in order to get a confirmation, in order to get acceptance, you raise your tone. Is that in Croatia? So you're waiting for a confirmation from the other party. You got back yesterday, right? You know, you heard somewhere from that he or she came back yesterday, but you don't know quite for sure. So you ask, you got back yesterday, right? You probably know, but you're not so sure if you know it definitively. So you raise your voice in order to signify that you don't know the answer, but you actually the answer do know the answer too. So, are you feeling tired? So you can see the person you're talking to, and you say, "Are you feeling tired?" And they will say, "Yes, I am tired." And you get a confirmation of that. But as you know, not every question that we ask uh, doesn't really need an answer. As you can see from the example, when we say to someone, "Are you insane?" you don't really expect an answer back. You don't expect them to say, "Yes, I am indeed an insane person," or "No, I'm not insane." You don't expect that kind of answer. You don't expect any answers, actually. So you use intonation and you use questions in order to, like make a comment, to show your criticism, in order to show your disapproval towards someone, or in order to make a suggestion, in order to make a point. You use intonation patterns, intonation with the questions. So as an example of those, we can use falling tone for making a comment or making a suggestion, and we can use a rising tone in order to like criticize someone. So as you can see from the example here, with a falling tone, you can make a comment. You can say, "Why would you say that?" Or you can say, "Doesn't he look smart? Isn't it delicious?" Right? So things like that can, intonations like this can really signify what you're trying to say. It can make it more credible. It can make it more intelligible. So you can also make a suggestion with a falling tone as well, like, "How about we just go home?" Or, "Why don't you just call and ask what's happening?" Right? But since I've said it before, uh, intonation and intonation patterns are flexible. So you're not always supposed to use a falling tone, or you're not always supposed to use a rising tone in order to criticize someone or make a comment or make a suggestion. I mean, for example, you can make a suggestion by a rising tone, like, for as you can see from the example here, "How about we just go home?" When using a falling tone, you can say, "How about we just go home?" But you can make a suggestion with a rising tone as well, and you say, "How about we just go home? How about we just go home?" Right? So you're not completely bound to these rules. You can bend these rules. So continuing with the examples, we can look at the criticizing one. So we use a rising tone in order to criticize someone, like, "Have you lost your mind?" Or, "Why would you do that?" Or, "Are you really that stupid?" Right? You criticize someone, you mock them, probably, or you criticize them. So, in order to signify, in order to mark that, yes, you are indeed criticizing this person, you raise your voice and you highlight what you're trying to say with the intonation. But with intonation, we can also express our emotions. As you can see from the example here, we can express emotions such as like surprise, doubt, excitement, sarcasm, and annoyance. But what we can do is that we can, how should I say, with intonations, we can express all of these uh, emotions with the same words. For example, I'm going to use the word "did you" in order to express those emotions. You can try to do this before me. So I guess you've done it. So I'm continuing. So in order to express surprise, we say, "Did you?" Right? Surprise. In order to doubt, in order to show our doubt, we say, did you? Or we can say, in order to express our excitement, did you? Right? Did you? You're excited about something. Or in order to, criticize someone, or in order to, be sarcastic, you can say, did you? Right? Did you? Or in order to be annoyed, to show your annoyance, you can be like, did you? Right? Same words, but different intonations, different patterns. You can express your emotions with the same words, but with different intonations. So this was it. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope I can see you in a new project somewhere in the future. So bye until then.